The Los Angeles Dodgers have a new shortstop, not a new player, but a new position for that player. We're going to talk all about that, and we're going to talk about the number 5 spot, and we're going to talk about the bullpen. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more, and now new customers can join and get $150 in bonus bets. If you first bet $5 or more wins, visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. If you want to become an everydayer, all you have to do is watch or listen every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and be notified when our episodes are available. If this is your first time listening watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio. That's my co-host, Jeff Snyder. Jeff and I are lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team for a long time now. We've watched the Dodgers even longer than that, and we've been doing this podcast a little bit less than that. And we're here to bring you what we believe is smart and rational and thoughtful takes to make you and us better Dodger fans overall. And speaking of smart and rational takes, Jeff, you had the idea last week of flipping Mookie Betts and Gavin Lux at shortstop and second base. We talked about it. We weren't opposed to it, but we didn't think it would happen, and definitely not happen the day after that we talked about it, or the day of we talked about it, whatever it was. But yeah, Mookie Betts is now the Los Angeles Dodgers starting shortstop. Gavin Lux moves over to second base. There's a lot to unpack here, but let's just first start off with when we found out the news. I found out at Camelback Ranch with the lineup was tweeted out by the Dodger PR account, and we all were standing there waiting for Dave Roberts to speak, all the beat writers, and we found out that Mookie Betts was starting shortstop. So we all knew we had something to talk about that day.
Yeah, and you started texting me, and so I got it in real time from you as you were getting it real time from Dave Roberts. And yeah, it was about 36 hours from the time we recorded that episode until Dave Roberts announced it. And yeah, I think we were both in favor. It's mostly if we didn't think it would happen that soon. We thought it was if Lux continues to struggle. But I think I would guess, my best guess is that the Dodgers still hope that Gavin Lux is their shortstop of the future, and that this is a way to take some of the pressure off of him, because obviously he has throwing issues right now. And having throwing issues as the starting shortstop for a team that hopes to win the World Series maybe isn't the best way to overcome your throwing issues. And so maybe letting him play second base where the throw is a little bit shorter. I think we've already seen, like, obviously it's not like it was just a switch flipped and now he throws great. You know, there's been a couple questionable throws even from second base, but we saw a couple times on Sunday double play attempts, or I think one double play and one double play attempt that he made solid throws on from second base, which is almost as far as, actually, when you're throwing from the actual bag, it's almost as far as throwing from shortstop, depending on where you're fielding the ball. But and the throws look fine. And so I'm hoping that he gets it figured out. But honestly, you remember last season, I was in favor of Mookie Betts as a Dodger shortstop last year. With Miguel Vargas at second base, it was like, okay, well, if they're going to have Vargas at second, let's put Mookie at short, and I was in favor of that then, and I'm in favor of it now. I think that Mookie has what it takes to be a good shortstop. And the fact is, from a selfish standpoint for Mookie, his chances of winning the MVP are better at shortstop than they are at second base or in right field.
Yeah, I mean, honestly don't know how they view Lux right now in terms of the future, but I know the immediate future, the second base, he's not going to work out at shortstop anymore, Dave Roberts said, and even mentioned a possible platoon over there at second base. Easing him in basically, and maybe not giving them lefties right off the bat. So we could see Kike, we could see, a handful of guys over there at second base when there's left-handed pitching on the mound. So that'll just remain to be seen. Obviously, his throwing is going to be the key part of all this. He's been hitting very well this spring. I would imagine that's going to continue. and we're just gonna have to monitor those throws. But on the Mookie side, he had it was interesting because he spoke to the media that same day, and he answered everybody's questions, but it wasn't normal Mookie candidness that we've come to learn over just specifically like this year and toward the end of last year. A lot of some cliche answers, some shorter answers, some straight to the
Saving
point.
it for the podcast, right?
Yeah, he did. He actually did. He ended up, basically saying that he's doing this to help the Dodgers win, whatever it takes for the Dodgers to win. He hasn't played shortstop every day since he was senior in high school. He called Gavin Lux and told him, basically gave him a vote of confidence in the sense of, hey, you know what? Nothing's changed. We're just flipping sides, different views of the plate or whatever the exact wording he said. And, they asked him, did you talk to him like when he got to the field or anything on the field when they were working out? And he said, no, like that's something that he's, going to handle and deal with. And, I talked to him already before that. So, good on Mookie on that end. And then he did add the next day on the live podcast, he said he was ready to talk about it. And he called it one of the coolest moments of his life, finding out that he was going to be the everyday shortstop for the Dodgers. And, this is a guy that came up as an infielder, was drafted as an infielder, came up as an infielder, ended up becoming one of, if not the best right fielder in the game because of position moves that needed to happen because of guys that were already on the Red Sox. But he's comfortable. I know there's a lot of talk about a lot of different things, but I'm not going to doubt Mookie.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see. Rick Monday mentioned a couple times, and there's a lot of mention that shortstop is a more demanding position than second base. And, does this undo some of the benefit of moving him from right field to second base? And I've actually put out a few feelers to a couple people who would know better than me. My thought is with the shift band, other than the longer throw, I don't know that shortstop would be that much more demanding than second base, but I have reached out to a couple people who would know better than I would. And so hopefully in the next couple of days, I might have some insights from other people. I did want to mention, not every Dodger fan was a fan of this move. And it ended up with me having some fun interactions on social media. One person said, dumbest crap the Dodgers have done in a while. Nothing Lux has done this spring is that different from what he's done all his career. They should have known this. And I think that was a reply to your tweet, actually. And I tweeted a response, said Gavin Lux's career fielding percentage is 973. His fielding percentage this spring is 800. What he's done this spring has been significantly different from what he's done all his career. And a couple people who are almost as clever as they think they are made fun of me for using fielding percentage. Oh, what a dummy using fielder percentage. And I have a podcast, so I'm going to address that. Everydayers know I have a pretty good grasp on advanced statistics. I understand all the weaknesses of fielding percentage, and I would never use fielding percentage to judge how good a defender is because, for example, if you have somebody with a lot more range than another person, say shortstop A has regular range and shortstop B has much better range, shortstop B gets to 10 more balls than shortstop A. So with shortstop A, these 10 are all hits. With shortstop B, 9 of them are outs, but one of them he throws the ball away. Well, he's got a worse fielding percentage of shortstop A, and yet he also made 9 more outs than shortstop A. So I wouldn't use fielding percentage to judge the quality of a fielder. But in Gavin Lux's case, the problem this spring has been he's making a whole lot more errors. And it's easy to envision a world where the Dodgers looked and said, we are okay with Gavin Lux making an error about 3% of the time at shortstop. And hopefully that could be our baseline and we can get him better from there. And then he comes in and he's making errors 20% of the time. Like it's one of the replies I told somebody, I said, fielding percentage isn't the best way to judge a fielder, just like body weight isn't the best way to judge somebody's fitness. But just like if somebody weighs 800 pounds, there's a problem. If somebody has an 800 fielding percentage, there's a problem. And so it was I don't know if people know this, Twitter has limited characters. And when the problem is a guy making too many errors, the stat that literally measures what percentage of the time does he make an error, pretty good stat for that situation. And so maybe people need to do more than just read the chapter titles of their Stat Geeks for Pretentious Nerds books, right, and actually understand why fielding percentage is poo-pooed and where it might actually make some sense to use it. And I have a podcast and you don't, so shut up.
Yeah.
That wasn't directed at you, Vince, because you do have a podcast. So
there's, again, everything that we could say has probably already been said. It's out there. We're fans of the move. We're fine with the move. It didn't help the situation that Mookie's first attempt was a backhand that he didn't quite handle. And, everything that happens from now on, he's going to be scrutinized. He said, it's already pressure to be on the Dodgers. Now it's even more pressure to be shortstop on the Dodgers. But again, that's just what comes with territory. He's, already made himself available however they need in order for them to win. And, that's what we're going to look forward to right now.
Yep.
All right. There is other things on the Dodgers roster that has had some shuffling and or differences that we maybe thought before the spring started. So we're going to talk about the fifth starter position next. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Honestly, college basketball is a lot different than it's been the last few years. So it's going to be very interesting this season, and we'll see what happens. So $200 if you get your first bet of $5 or more right. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. FanDuel, official partner of Locked On Dodgers. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube, and become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. If you're already on YouTube, you can find two 24/7 streaming channels that might benefit you from the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, covering the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world from Locked On hosts, experts, and more. And you might even see us on there sometimes. So make sure to check those out and subscribe. All right, Jeff, let's get into the number 5 starter for the Dodgers, Emmet Sheehan. Dave Roberts said that he will start the season on the injured list. He threw earlier this spring, had some general soreness, and has barely started ramping back up again. So remains to be seen how long he'll be down for, but he's not going to start the season with the Dodgers, which opened up to Dave Roberts saying that it's kind of between Michael Grove and Gavin Stone, with Ryan Yarbrough a possibility and somebody else a possibility. Missing the name right now, but it's going to come down to Grove and Stone. Stone has looked very, 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 very good this spring. I would imagine he's the front runner right now. Michael Grove had not looked that great this spring until this last time out when he looked very, very good. So all in all, do you think Grove has enough to push Stone out of it, or do you think the Dodgers trust Grove? Whatever it is, it seems to be they have a little bit of a soft spot for Grove in a sense.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Stone, and for a couple reasons. I think that, Stone was the more highly ranked prospect, and not that earns him any bonus points, but that kind of tells you he's probably deep down inside a better pitcher, and so I think that gives him the advantage, especially, it wouldn't give him, if it was a tiebreaker, that gives him a little bit of an advantage. In this case, like you said, Stone has been a little bit better than Grove this spring. They were both awesome this last time out, but Stone has had the more consistent spring. Stone has a specific reason for why he struggled last year, and it has been addressed. And so, everydayers know I have a thing for, if somebody makes a change and then their performance improves, I am inclined to think that the change had something to do with the performance improving. And that's what we saw with Stone last year. He pitched much better at the end of the season than he did earlier in the season. And that was because he had been tipping his pitches. And we've seen this spring, the pitches look great. The stuff looks great. And it's not just a fluky thing. And so, yeah, Michael Grove looked great the other day, but also Michael Grove has experience pitching in long relief in the big leagues. And so, when we'll probably dig into that part of it maybe a little bit more in the third segment when we're talking about the career roster. But, if there's going to be a spot for, if we go into it assuming that Stone and Grove are both going to be on the big league roster, it makes sense to me to have Stone be the fifth starter and Grove do that role that he has, somewhat substantial experience in, of being a long reliever. Overall for Sheehan, I think it's probably, I don't know if I'd say a blessing in disguise, but I don't think it makes the Dodgers too sad since they do have other options for the fifth starter. Sheehan, between the big leagues and the minors last year, threw 123 innings. And so you figure he wasn't going to be in line for a full season, 180 to 200 innings this year anyway. Kind of like, to a different degree, but kind of like Walker Buehler, going to be limited anyway. And so it's not the end of the world to have some of that reduced innings come in the first month of the season. If they can have both of those guys healthy in October, that's better for everybody. And so I'm sure that was part of the thinking of, they're probably thinking it's good to be in a situation where we don't need to rush him back right now because we do have other options.
Yeah, it's, Ryan Yarbrough is also going to be in probably likely the bullpen, Dave Roberts said, in that long reliever type, swingman type role. There's a lot of ways to handle that. One of those ways, like I said, we'll get into the next segment about kind of what the roster is shaping up and some other injuries and things of note that could get Stone, Grove, and Yarbrough all on this roster with kind of ease, at least to start the season. So, there's a lot there, but I definitely think Stone has, if you're going into it, everybody's even playing field, then yeah, Stone has outperformed everybody else. He deserves to have the spot, and like I said, he was a more heralded prospect. He had the better stuff initially, and still does, and it's one of those where he's deserving of it. He went out there, he made the changes. He made a pitch change last year in season, which is not very easy to do, along with learning that he was tipping pitches and figuring that out, and having his confidence kind of shaken from getting hit so hard so early in his career in the major league. So he's overcome a lot. He's now he's back this spring and earning it. And as long as we've talked about it, going into spring, Sheehan, we felt like had the upper leg just because of he had that success last year. Stone didn't. I know you were still an advocate for Stone, just in general. And now it's kind of coming to fruition. So it works out.
And I said that I marked Gavin Stone as a guy to watch because he did have that opportunity. I didn't necessarily expect him to earn the fifth starter role, but I probably did say, he'd be the first guy up if injuries happen. And, the fact that the injury happened during spring, that, it will give him a chance to probably break camp, at least the U.S. portion of the big league season, as the fifth starter. Obviously, they won't have a fifth starter in Korea, but maybe that's as good as segue as any to for you to say. Speaking of Korea,
there's a lot to get into about Korea.
I said, say speaking of Korea, Vince.
The Dodgers go this week to Korea. They're going to start their season over there. As we know, the roster, which could be different from the opening day roster, is not set yet. There are some moving pieces. Specifically, some moving pieces that we learned about this weekend. So we're going to get into all that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs as well as the Fire TV stick. They can plug into your existing TV and provide access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. So whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. And Fire TV now comes with Fire TV channels, which are constantly supplying you with the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channel lets you dive into the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up on all the latest in the world of sports. So check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. We want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, if you're not one, all you have to do is start listening or watching every day. You can find us where we get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you want to go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider and text directly with us, all you have to do is go to join subtext.com/Locked On Dodgers, and you can join us and text directly with us, get updates for, you would have heard about Mookie Betts not becoming the shortstop. You would have heard about Blake Treinen and some other things that happened over the weekend. And you can ask us any questions ask our reactions, a lot of different things. There's anything you could think of that you want to ask us about the Dodgers is there. So join subtext.com/Locked On Dodgers to go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider. All right, Jeff. So, couple updates over the weekend. We found out that Brusdar Graterol will not be on the roster for the Korea series, the Seoul series. He's working to try to be available for the start of opening day on the 28th. He had some soreness, and he's only thrown one time this spring, and he's trying to ramp things back up. One thing on him, I wonder if he's a guy that is work my way into shape as the season goes on. Remember like a couple years ago, he didn't have, like, he wasn't throwing right away in spring, and we didn't know what was going on. And then he always kind of starts the season a little slow and ends it really strong. I wonder if he's one of those type of guys.
Yeah, it could be. And yeah, it's we probably need more data than we have so far, but we've seen definitely the data is starting to point that way. I wouldn't do a trifold school science project poster on it yet, but I might be starting to think about that might be my science project next year, maybe.
Yeah. The other one that we found out if you were watching, Blake Treinen was hit by a comebacker, came out of the game. Immediately after the game, they called it a rib contusion, I believe. We found out on Sunday that it was a bruised lung. So lung contusion, it's not as bad as it sounds. He's expected to throw on Monday and see how it feels and everything else. And the Dodgers leave for Korea on Thursday, I believe. So it's going to take these next few days for Treinen to be throwing and feel good to see if he's going to make that trip and be on the roster. But, all in all, to be said, this kind of opens up some spots that we talked about. And we already were thinking what the roster could look like since they don't need 5 starting pitchers out there specifically. And now with everything else going on. And Jeff, there's going to be a few open positions now.
Yeah. And it's kind of wild because they do have a week off basically between the second game in Korea and their U.S. opener against the Cardinals. And so, obviously some of that is travel time, but as far as pitchers rest time, I mean, it's anybody who throws in Korea will be on full rest when the time comes for the actual season to start. Obviously there's exhibition games they're going to play in Korea. There's the freeway series between the Korea series and the Cardinals series that people will pitch in those things. But it does open up a lot of options for them. Like we've talked about the possibility of them carrying fewer than 13 pitchers to Korea. Like it seems to me like that's almost a sure thing at this point, because even if you take all your starters and all of your relievers who you think are sure things to be in your bullpen, I don't think that even adds up to 13 right now. I think it's probably about 11. And that's, maybe Treinen makes that 12 if his bullpen goes well on Wednesday. But, when you look at it, I'm just going in alphabetical order. Ryan Brazier, yeah. JP Fireeisen, sure, we'll count him. Tyler Glasnow, Michael Grove, Joe Kelly, Bobby Miller, James Paxton, Evan Phillips, Gavin Stone, Blake Treinen, Alex Vesia, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Ryan Yarbrough. Okay, so that's 13 if they take all of those guys. But you could make a pretty good case that maybe you don't need some of those guys. If Bobby Miller is going to start the home opener against the Cardinals, he probably won't pitch in one of the 2 Korea games in long relief. Miller's wherever Miller's pitching in the rotation, he's probably not going to pitch in long relief. That would be my guess. And knowing that you do have so many starters, so even if Yamamoto gives you 4 innings and Glasnow gives you 4 innings, but you have your 4th and 5th starters there too, okay, well, you don't need that many relievers. And so I think this does really open up the chances for, maybe Miguel Vargas and or Andy Pages to get to go. The fact that I think you did the episode solo after Pages got optioned back to the minors. But yeah, I mean, he's still totally eligible to be on the roster to go to Korea. They can always recall him. I think that was mostly let's get him playing in mostly the minor league games. We've seen him in 1 or 2 big league games since then, but it's really just, okay, he needs to be playing basically full time now to get ready for the season for whatever role we need him in. So it's easier to do that back on the backfields. But yeah, I think at this point, I'd be surprised if we don't have Vargas and or Pages on the active roster for the 2 Korea games.
Yeah, so they're able to take 31 and then 26 are active for the games, right? So
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of room to, like I said, depending how they do and what they go for, and we'll just have to see. Obviously, Treinen is kind of just the main one right now that we're not sure of. Daniel Hudson might be that other one. I don't know if he'll be ready specifically for this series, but again, it's the Dodgers will have enough arms, however they need to compete out there, and can realistically only have Glasnow go 4 innings if they want to, or Yamamoto go 4 innings if they want to. They'll be stretched out enough to go more than that by then, but realistically, that's something they could do. So we'll see. Who gets to make that trip, who will be on the roster, who gets to play. It'll be one of those interesting things where potentially Miguel Vargas or Andy Pages could be a league leader in something, and then come not even playing the majors once everyone else starts playing. It was Adrian Gonzalez was the MLB leader in stolen bases back then when they had the series in Australia, which was always a fun time for a week when Adrian Gonzalez had the most stolen bases in baseball.
Yeah. I guess who would they don't really have an equivalent this year of Adrian Gonzalez. Like, I think their slowest guys
Austin Barnes homer somehow, and he's the league leader in home runs.
Yeah, but we're talking about reality here, Vince. If Austin Barnes gets in a game, it's because I think their slowest guys are probably Smith and Muncy, and both of those guys are quicker than they probably ought to be. So yeah, nothing to be too surprised. I feel like Andy Van Slyke did something in Australia too that was maybe Scott Van Slyke. Yeah, I'm old. I think of Andy. I think Van Slyke maybe led the league in homers for a little bit or something.
Probably.
Yeah. It'll be fun though. What's your plan for sleeping, Vince? I'd be interested to know what our listeners are going to be doing for those games. Are they going to, because it's they start at 3 a.m.
3 a.m. Pacific.
So it's 4 o'clock for me. So I think I'm going to bed early and just getting up and watch the games, and then maybe we'll podcast right after, and then I'll go to work.
Yeah, it's definitely right in that sweet spot of, okay, do I just stay up or do I go to sleep? Realistically, if I don't have anything to do the night before, I can go to sleep as early as I want. Because last time for Australia, one of the games was 1 a.m., which was easy, just stay up and watch it. But this one, 3 a.m., 2 a.m., you're pushing of, okay, I think I'm just going to stay up. 3 a.m., I think that's, all right, let me get at least 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And then the good thing about me and my job was that's the only baseball that happened that day, so I can go to sleep right after.
Yeah, and the fact is, usually the thing we would have to do the night before is record a podcast, but we're not going to record a podcast at 11 p.m. and then have them play a couple hours later. So, we're going to be holding off on recording that anyway. So yeah, I think that's going to be my plan: is go to bed at 9, get up at 4 in time to watch the game, and then at 6:30 or 7 my time, record the podcast, get it live, and then start work. So. But yeah, listeners, tell us what your plan is for those, and don't tell me you're not going to watch them, because come on, get your priorities straight.
Yeah. The only other, the other news coming out of the weekend, Dodgers started cutting the camp down a little bit more. Matt Gage, Andre Lipschitz were optioned. Kevin Gowdy, Eliezer Hernandez, Don Rushing, Trace Winnie, Austin Gauthier, Drew Avens, Jose Ramos, and Ryan Ward were all reassigned to minor league camp. So the roster right now is at 41. Again, those guys can still play in games, even though there's not that many games left for the Dodgers before they head out. But, yeah, I mean, no surprises there, I don't think.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, for anybody who's not clear on the difference between being optioned and being reassigned, it just means if you're on the 40-man roster, you're being optioned. If you're not on the roster, you're a non-roster invitee, you're being reassigned to camp. One last thing I want to bring up, Vince, from one of our insiders, really quickly on the Gavin Stone stuff. It's from Josh. He lives here in Utah, but down in St. George. But he asked, how much influence does a strong spring training like Gavin Stone's really have on the open day roster decisions? Does a performance like today's really change anything if he isn't already the guy the front office wants on the team?
I think if you're in a competition for a spot, yeah, it does make sense. If the Dodgers had 5 starters already and Gavin Stone had that, then I don't think it puts him in the number 5 spot. But he's in a competition for the number 5 spot. I definitely think it holds a lot of weight.
Yeah, if there was any reason that they already didn't want him to be in that role, he wouldn't have been getting the starts that he got this spring. The fact that he got those starts, they want to see what he can provide. And now that Sheehan's not going to be ready to start the season, I think, if anything, maybe this question applies more to Michael Grove, because Michael Grove might have been more less likely to earn the 5th starter spot than Stone. If their springs have been equal, like I said earlier, I think the tiebreaker goes to Stone. And so, this could apply to him, that if they already decided they prefer Stone over Grove, maybe Grove would have had to outperform Stone by quite a bit this spring. But yeah, Stone, I think it seems like it's his spot.
Yeah. So, we'll see. So, all right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become in every day or by listening or watching every day. You can subscribe and make that easier and get notified when our episodes are up. You can become a Locked On Dodgers insider if you go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can text directly with us and have those questions read on the podcast when you have those questions. So go check that out. Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles are 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network, covering the biggest news and stories from around the sports world and the LA sports world. So go subscribe there. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us if you have any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you're in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device, play a podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.